So today I want to talk about something that parents need to be aware of now. So it's to do with the independent school interview preparation. So we get a lot of inquiries about the independent school interview. Hi there, this is Joycelyn Akufo. I'm the Managing Director of Geek School Tutoring. Welcome to our Geek School channel if you're new, and hello Geekers if you're not new and you are one of our very seasoned subscribers. Around this time, many parents start inquiring about the independent school interview because it's September. And, this year, many of the independent schools actually have brought their exams forward. Most of the time, the exams take place in January of year 6. Some of the GDST schools, the Girls' Day Trust schools, have historically always had the exam around like October, November time. But this year, some of the historically, most schools do the independent school exam in January. Many schools are now introducing a pre-test which will take place in November largely. Some of those pre-tests are the ISEB adaptive tests or some other kind of pre-tests that's available. SEM-adaptive is another one, for instance. And then students who are successful are called back in January to write the written paper. But in amongst all the preparation, one thing that parents tend to leave a bit later to think about is the independent school interview. And one of the reasons why many parents leave it is because, one, some parents are unaware that their independent schools actually conduct interviews in the first place. And why would they even think that they do? Most children who sit the independent school exams, in our experience, would have sat for at least one of the grammar school exams, and grammar schools do not interview. So when research is being undertaken for 11 plus exams, I want to excuse the noise as well. So I'm at our Geek School Beckenham Centre, and of course I'm recording without my mic. So you can see there's nothing here mic-wise, and so you guys are getting the full experience of a very quiet centre because I'm recording during the day when schools are shut. And because of that, it means that all the traffic is coming in because I don't have my mic. So in any case, basically what is happening is that parents are unaware that their child will have to sit the interview, have to undertake an interview. And so it sort of comes very late on. It's unsurprising because, generally for the whole 11 plus domain, schools are not really keen for children to be over prepared. They like children to be familiar maybe with the multiple choice format for grammar schools, or familiar with, having to do quite a lengthy exam paper for the independent schools, but they don't really want children to be over prepared. And I'm not surprised. Whenever we've interviewed students in preparation for their 11 plus interview, so usually every year we run some sort of workshop, whether it's in centre or online, you can really see those children who've been badly prepared for the interview. And I say that with all due respect because, as parents, we want the best for our children and we give them whatever we know to be the best, And so some children go into the 11 plus interviews if they're like literally going for a job interview, and some of them sound very robotic, and, it really shows when they are interviewed at schools that they have been told what to say. And that's the worst type of preparation that any child could ever get for these interviews. So let's take a pause for a minute. Guys, I always get so emotional about everything to do with the 11 plus. It sort of goes from A to maybe Q very, very quickly, but I don't want to leave anything out. So When should you start preparing your child for the 11 plus interview? I would say from now. So, we are in September, and so if you have independent schools in mind, maybe you're thinking about going for open days now that it's feasible this year, September 2021. Oh dear, here's another oh dear. Okay, so maybe you're preparing for applying for independent schools, or you're thinking about attending open days and so on. Part of that whole preparation for the exam process should have an element of independent school interview preparation. And I'm going to discuss a little bit about what that preparation should entail to give your child the best chance of doing well in the interview. So, since we're in September, what type of preparation would you really want to do? Obviously, at the forefront of all the preparation, it's getting your child to work at their academic best consistently, to make sure they don't have any knowledge gaps, that they can complete the papers in time and to a high standard. You may even be working on their handwriting for clarity, working on their spelling, and even their vocabulary and so on. But here's the thing. When children sit their independent school exams and they're offered an interview, you don't usually get a lot of notice, and so there isn't a lot of time to prepare them in between. This is what creates panic. So at some point in the year, sort of literally, let's say from first week of January, we start getting lots of calls, lots of emails, lots of WhatsApp messages, interview, independent school interview. Do you do interview coaching? Do you do this? Do you do this independent school course? And so on. Yes, we do have an independent school interview course, and the link will appear in the description. But what can you do now? So your child needs to not be the type that doesn't have much to say. And I don't mean that if your child is naturally quiet that they will not do well in the interview. That is actually not true, because obviously schools want a mix of personalities. We can't all be extroverts in a school, otherwise could you imagine the chaos? And of course they can't have all introverts either, because that would be a different atmosphere. There has to be a mix of students with different personalities, different interests, academic ability, even though they all obviously have a good academic standing. They would need to in order to pass these exams, for one thing. So what can you do now? Well, one key area that I'm always stressing our students to engage in is to read the news. So just literally going on the BBC website, for example, there's a whole domain of different subject areas, from news to health to business to sport, international news and so on. And it's good for children to spend about 10 minutes a day just navigating through, 2 or 3 different parts of the BBC website. I use the BBC website because the language is very easy for children to get a grasp of, but it's not so easy that they're not challenged with a few advanced words that they may need to check the meaning of. So it serves as a learning tool as well. And in doing that, they are more aware of what's going on in the world and they have something to say. So some of the independent school interview questions focus around like current affairs, or, what have you read in the news today that has, or what have you read in the news recently that has drawn your attention and why? Now, if your child is just basically stuck in a David Walliams book for free time, or on their PS4 or 5 all the time, or they're Netflixing and chilling, or Amazon Prime videoing, or roadblocksing and whatever else, they won't really have much to say. And it's not because these children don't have anything to say is because the resource bank of information and conversational or topics of conversation rather do not come freely to them because they are not exposed to that. And most families, working families, don't always have lots of time to have these topical discussions. Brownie points to you if you're the type of parent who, really sort of gets your children involved in these current affair conversations and so on. Keep doing it. It's a fantastic way to bring awareness to them about what's going on. But, you'd be hard pressed to talk to them about every single news story, every single scientific release, every single health discovery and so on. It's better if they can read this information themselves and then they can discuss it, amongst the family, with their friends and so on. So I really stress on the BBC. If your child is conversant with like broadsheet websites, so The Guardian, The Times, The Telegraph, the good newspapers, it sounds awful. There's nothing particularly wrong with the Suns, the Mirrors, the Expresses and so on. I don't want anyone sort of trying to get me and harangue me because I'm against tabloid newspapers, which I'm not. But sometimes the content won't necessarily be child friendly. And if you're an adult who has looked in any of these newspapers, you'd probably understand a bit about my reasoning for that, So with the BBC website, it's a lot more controlled. With the broadsheet websites, it's a lot more controlled. So you can control a lot more about the kind of content that your child is exposed to, number one. And, it keeps it educational and informative. We're not very much interested in celebrity news and all of that for the 11 plus. Really, it's more to do with, I want to say real news. That's basically where I'm taking this really. And, it opens the eyes of children to lots of issues that they can then have an opinion about. And, having all these stories accessible to them even helps with their creative writing. So if you have a child that isn't reading any news whatsoever, start with the BBC website. It's a fantastic tool. Obviously, it's owned by the public. That's why we pay our TV license. So you can tell that I would never have been sponsored by the BBC. If anything, I sponsor them with my TV license. And so do you all if you have a TV license. So it's a fantastic tool. So that's what I would say. Start now. 10 to 15 minutes per day isn't going to really cause any damage to your child's 11 plus exam preparation. If anything, it will help in that preparation. And so by the time that they get to the point where all the grammar school exams are finished at some point this month, depending on which schools or grammar school county exams that your child will be sitting, there is more time then to start looking at the independent schools. It's not a lot of time, granted, but there's a bit more time. And so, now you can start looking at other areas of your child's work which should incorporate the interview. So, just about all independent schools interview children before sending an offer letter. They want to know the type of personality the children have, their viewpoints, and so on. Obviously, they want to see that your child will fit in with the school community and have something to bring to the school community as well. And so this is what I love about independent schools. They really sort of handpick the students, and I love that. So it means that when a child is offered a place at an independent school, that school has really considered that child, not just their academic ability like the grammar schools, but they've taken a reference from their primary school, they've interviewed them, obviously they've got their exam results as well. So, you know, and there's a discussion that happens within the schools before they choose the students. So your child is really handpicked for a place, and it's definitely well earned and well deserved by the time that offer letter lands at your door or your inbox, okay? So I hope that's been helpful. I really do hope that's been helpful. Please let me know if you've had your 11 plus exams already. We have a few here on the Geek School YouTube channel who come back and offer tips and advice. I really love that. Please keep doing that. Share the interview questions that you've been given at particular schools so that it can help other children prepare for their exams as well. So that's it from me. So please remember that we do have the independent school interview course, and you can, you know, sign up very, very seamlessly and register your child for that course happily. And, you know, get a whole bank of interview questions that I've put together based on the feedback that our students have been giving me over the years. And so it's updated every so often. You know, every year there might be the odd different question and so on. And I try to, by updating that. So thank you. That's it. I will see you in the next video. Bye.